Hello, hello, hello. Wow.
Theoretically, that's right.
But the two, the grannies,
Except
like,
to
fronted
make
for these two
me
boys. They switched
show my
like
screen.
that's like my level of.
So you see my screen down in the lower right corner. There should be a way to click on that and like make me present it or something like that, which may present to everyone.
Wow, really?
They're talking about
And so
security and
that should be it.
And then mute.
barbed wire.
Yeah, you can mute for now. we're going to go ahead and get started then with today's brown bag. We have a pretty heavy agenda, but there should be some time for questions as well. I expect some of these topics to generate a few questions as well. So welcome to the July WiscWeb brown bag. We skipped last month because we didn't have a lot of agenda. Of course, not this month. We have a lot to talk about. So we'll just be going through these one at a time, and we'll go from there. So Jenna was working in a class on gravity forms, and with the help of Jim Vogel, discovered some very cool functionality that we wanted to pass along to you guys. One of the requests we've had is to have maybe some people contribute to the site without being full editors or administrators. And there is a way to do that using forms. What you can do is create a form in Gravity Forms. So everybody has Gravity Forms by default, which is a plugin. Oh, there already is a test form. We'll call it brown bag test form. And over on the right in your form builder, you see post fields. And these are all the same types of post fields that are in a post if you were to make a post. And so what you can do is drag these over into a form. These are some of the things that you might use on your site, but of course, if you're not using things like categories, you can skip them. And we also recommend using some of these advanced fields like name and date and email. And what you can do is then create this form, which will request somebody's name, email, date if you want that on there, a post title, the body of the post, any categories associated with the post, and the excerpt, which you remember appears in certain areas that you use in the post, which again, you can choose to use some or all these features or not. So I'm going to go ahead and create this form. Then I'm going to go to and add it to one of my pages. So if you've never used Gravity Forms, this is a very, very quick tutorial of Gravity Forms. I'm going to go to my test page, and I am going to add a new text block here. I'm going to move it to the top so you guys can see this first on the page. And I'm going to add a form, and I'm going to select brown bag test form, insert form. It puts this little code in there, which is called a short code. Update, and then when I go to Ryan's test page, you will now see this form. So if I'm a user on your site and I want to submit a new post to the website, I can fill this out. All the categories for your site fill in here, so you can choose categories if you would like. Excerpt, and I can hit submit. Where does this go in your site? If you go to your posts, you will see post has now come in as a draft, and you'll see everything I just wrote show up now in your site, and you can do with it as you want. You can massage it, edit it up, make it look nice, add some additional things to it, and when you're ready to publish it, you can come over here and hit publish. As you do not need to be a user or what's called a subscriber, editor, or administrator to do this. Anybody on your site can use this feature. So if you have, these are great for things like events, upcoming news, things like that that you may want, that other people may know about that you don't, or this may help them feel like they're contributing to the site in that way, whereas you're controlling sort of the static content. They're creating these sorts of things. And allow them to put the effort forth of getting this to you, and all you have to do then is kind of approve it. So it works very similar to the open text, sort of like a very generic approval of content. So that is the basics of how this works. It'll probably be covered in Jenna's gravity forms going forward. So if you take the gravity forms test training, which I'll talk about in a little bit, you'll get maybe a little bit more in depth. But this is the basic functionality, and it's pretty nifty if you need this sort of functionality. Now you can do this without having to have a user list that's 100 long, and every time they do it, they have to remember how to submit something, and this allows you to do that without that.
Can you have a default category for something?
I'm not sure if you can have a default.
I
Maybe.
mean, you probably have to review it so you can change it.
So I think uncategorized always is going to be the default, and I think that's just part of WordPress. Like if you go into categories initially, I think the first category is uncategorized, and then after that you add after that. I'm not sure if you can make one default or not, but we can look into it.
You want to just channel people into certain.
Right, and you also have to, if you want to have it be a default, uncategorized may be your best bet anyways, because odds are, if you're the one managing the site, odds are you know how all your categories work and are supposed to work, and people will see a word and they'll think, oh, that's what mine is, but maybe it's not actually what theirs is.
What I would do is in the form, don't even put the category field in there, and then when you go look at the posts, you'll get an email as the administrator or whoever you want to receive the email notifying you that a news article has been added. And then every time, just make sure you're categorizing it yourself with whatever is appropriate.
Right.
And then one thing to note is that there is also an option to add an image to the post. So if someone wanted to have a featured image on the post that they are adding, they can. And just keep in mind that that image that they're uploading will get added to your media library. So if you go in there and you're like, what is this image? I didn't add this. It might be from that.
How about a URL?
Can you include that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, would that be?
Yes, I believe so.
Someone doesn't know HTML.
Let me go back to my test page here. I believe you can this will just, whatever text you put in there.
I was thinking of like a user who doesn't know HTML.
It might come in as plain text, and then you might have to add it as a URL.
Okay.
So, but
When you're editing it,
yeah, you can do that. Yep. Because you'll have once it's in draft, you'll have the same editing options as you normally do. What's available in your form. This might just be, like I said, plain text. It's the fact that it didn't make this a URL makes me think that it's just plain text, and then you might have to work to do that. Any other questions on this? One other thing to keep in mind is that if you do make this available and you make it a link, search engines will find it, and that means potentially spam bots will find it as well. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but just, it could generate posts from people you may not want. So this would be, the next topic is reCAPTCHA. We'll talk about adding that to maybe prevent some of those things. You may also keep this sort of like an internal hidden link or something like that just certain people know about, or they bookmark or whatever. So there's a variety of ways to deal with that. Okay, so next topic is adding, so we've always referred to it as CAPTCHA. There's the news version is technically called reCAPTCHA because it enhances some of the functionality and makes it a little bit more accessible than it previously was. So we're going to go into that now. So for those of you who are unaware, CAPTCHA is for years it showed up as you're submitting a form, and the capital letters and numbers, and they'd be squiggly, and you'd have to figure out what they were to show them that you're not a robot. And there's a new version called reCAPTCHA, which just makes you click on a thing that says, I am not a robot. So what we have is the ability for you to add that to any of your forms. Let me find where I put this from. This form. In the advanced fields on any form, you will see CAPTCHA listed here. Usually it goes at the bottom, so we recommend that. And this is the box that will show up. So you've probably seen this on some of our forms. You've probably seen it on other forms. It is an image, I believe, or some sort of, I don't know, as a developer, do you want to talk about just a little bit of the underpinnings of this and how it works?
In terms of details of how it works, but basically it forces you to do something programmatic couldn't do. So.
But I'm incorrect in saying it's not an image because if it was an image with alt tags and a place to click, bots could find a way through it. So it sort of makes it difficult for spam bots to find it and click on it because it requires an active action by the user as opposed to tabbing through and hitting enter or something like that.
I think some of this one's about speed. Like if it goes too fast, it's like you're probably not a human because no human can like move
Fill
that
out a
fast.
form
Yeah.
in 0.6 seconds. Yeah. So this is what it looks like. I have to log into another site to show you how you will add it. So let me go to this one. We'll try it. I'll have to come back and clean this up, and there is a KB doc with instructions on how to do this with these screenshots. So what you'll do is you will get this the first time you try to add it to your form. It will ask you to sign up for an API key, and then you'll come to the settings page and enter that API key to enable CAPTCHA on your site. The most important part of this is that when you sign up, you should not sign up with your personal account. And if you're already logged into your Whisk account, you will sort of by default be logged in to your own account. So hopefully a lot of you at this point for your websites have like departmental accounts. Like we have a WiscWeb-support account for all of our things like this, so that they're affiliated with a group address as opposed to just Jenna or just I, so that if Jenna or I left, everyone would say, hey, where's that thing? Oh, Ryan had it. Now we have to make a new one. So that it's all affiliated with some sort of group account. You will go here, you'll sign up, you'll choose, I think, reCAPTCHA v2, and then you get, I didn't go through this in our instructions, so let me go through it and I'll update that in our KB doc.
So just to be aware, like at this point, if you're logged in with your Google account, you'll have to log out and go
You'll
to
come
like
up here, sign out, log back into your group account. And my group account is actually affiliated with my NetID, so I would actually log in with my NetID, and I would get an option then to choose my group account instead of my personal account. So
so if you just go through, scroll up a little bit.
Yeah.
So reCAPTCHA version 2 is what we were going with, and then add your domain. So if you have more than one project domain, so like, I don't know, like WiscWeb.wis.edu, and then you had something like animals.wis.edu, you can add those in there. I believe you should be able to just do wis.edu and then accept the reCAPTCHA terms of service and then register.
I'm not going to do this right now.
And then
you'll get a key.
Yeah. I'll just look at the screens here. It's going to ask for a label. So you just kind of like say, your group's name in there. And then, that was the beginning step, sorry. And then adding you get a key that you then have to add to your project.
So you'll come back to your project, go to the settings page, and come down to reCAPTCHA.
I guess you get 2 keys. Yeah, it's hard to show that screen.
And you get a site key and a secret key, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll enter those here. So one of the decisions we had to make when we were setting this up is we could have gotten a generic one for all of our sites and put it in here. We elected not to, because if our key ever gets compromised, we have to re-enter it for everybody. And this allows you guys to all have more control over that. So you don't have to wait on us to do anything. So if your key gets compromised, you can just go make a new one.
The keys that you get can be used on all of your projects, provided that you enter those domains in that first step. And once you enter the keys on a specific project, you can use CAPTCHA on any of your forms in that project. But if you have multiple projects, so for example, Kelly, you have multiple projects, you're going to have to go into each project and go into the form settings and just add those same keys into each project so that you can use CAPTCHA in that project.
One note I do want to make is when I sent out this agenda yesterday, I had a dialogue with Do It Communications because they were wondering what we meant by CAPTCHA. Even this version of CAPTCHA, which is the Click I'm Not a Robot version, which is more accessible than previous versions of CAPTCHA, is still not sort of web compliant accessible. And so they really recommend only using it when you're receiving a lot of spam, because if you prevent someone from submitting a form, that's worse than getting a spam or two, a week. But we've also seen cases where people are getting a dozen or hundreds within a month. And going in and deleting those and potentially deleting legitimate forms because you missed it because you're getting so much spam. Use at your own discretion is essentially what we're saying. It's out there for you to use. We know you need it sometimes, but if you can do without, that's the recommendation for accessibility.
So if I have a gravity form page, but I don't have it linked anywhere on my website, but on my newsletter, I say, hey, to alumni, if you want to keep us updated, go to this link. That won't then show up in this Google search thing, correct? Because it's not that page, that web page.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that URL linked anywhere in the website. It's just a page. So in the newsletter,
I don't know for sure.
If you have it linked on any page that Google crawls, Google will crawl all the links on a page.
right?
So it doesn't have to be in your navigation. It can just be a link off the page off to another page.
But maybe I don't link it to anything.
Yeah,
on
so
the
I don't-
website. It's just a page sitting out there.
So
That's
Kelly,
whatever.
so I don't know for sure because the other thing you have to keep in mind is that any information Google is allowed to get, they will. So
Okay.
someone could be logged. So, and the reason I say that is, let's say I'm logged into my Google account right now, and I click on your email. I don't know if Google. It would not surprise me if Google, despite the fact that that URL is not published anywhere, the fact that I clicked on an email ended up there in my Chrome browser owned by Google, and Google says, "Hey, I'm not aware of this URL. Hey, you're at a site I'm not aware of. I'm going to index that." So I'm not sure if there's sort of any way totally around it, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I would say, yeah,
assume any page you've published could be found by a search engine.
Sure.
could be. Generally, so linking is going to be the easiest way they find it because as soon as they see your site's updated, they're going to index it. But who knows? For example, this Ryan's test page, right? Like, it's not linked anywhere, but it wouldn't surprise me if I went to this enough and somebody wanted to see it after a brown bag that somehow it ended up in a Google's index. You can only keep things secret for so long from Google. Any other questions? We were talking about reCAPTCHA. Any other questions about reCAPTCHA? Okay. Next, we are going to be making an update very soon to versioning. Versioning is how many versions of a page or post that is kept track of by WordPress. We are going to be limiting that number to 14 because currently it is infinite and storage is not free. So this is just a way for us to keep control over how much storage we're using. We felt like 14 was, I don't know, how do we decide on 14? Arbitrary?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. There you go. So if you made an update a day for 2 weeks.
It's not even so much the storage, all of the versions get stored in the database, and the more we have in the database, the slower it can be. So what we're trying to prevent is unforeseen slowdowns of everything.
So hopefully you don't need to go back 15 or more edits when you're editing a page or whatever, but we will be limiting it to 14 in one of our future updates. Any questions on that? All right, state of feature requests. So since we launched WordPress, we've been asking our users to submit what we call feature requests, which could be functionality that doesn't exist, a plugin that doesn't exist, or an enhancement to an existing feature. This is in addition to custom work that we're doing for some of our existing customers as they migrate their sites from OpenText to WordPress, as well as some other things like, logo swaps and things like that. So our current state of feature requests is that we are over 50 deep in our backlog, which is our developer work log, essentially, of things to do. And that number is growing every week. We are getting more and more of them. That is not a bad thing because we want to eventually be able to deliver many of these things to you. But we also have to focus on the migration from OpenText to WordPress for the end, really to get done by the end of the year. So this is sort of in an effort to be transparent to let you know that you should still submit those feature requests, plugin requests, etc. to us. We look at every single one that comes in, and we look at it in terms of, priority. How many people will this affect? How high impact is the functionality to you and others? And if it is the case that it will be a very high impact and high priority, it's something we'll add to our backlog. Things that do not meet that criteria will probably be put into our backlog and be reevaluated in 2018. Things that meet the criteria of high impact, high urgency would be, we are working on a publications list so that people who have professors and other faculty who have a list of works they've written. We are working on a special functionality so that can be published in a list form with what's the notation that they use in standard notation for listing works. So those things are being, like I said, evaluated, and we are prioritizing them as we can. But just from a feasibility standpoint, to get migrated by the end of the year, their feature requests will kind of be anything that's not high impact, high urgency will be probably put off until 2018, and then we'll refocus. One of our goals is to make this process more transparent, and as we figure out a way to let you know what has already come in as a feature request, we would like to be able to let you know somebody has requested a feature and you go, oh, that sounds like a great feature for my site too, that you can somehow like +1 it or add notes to it and say, yes, I'd like this too, or whatever, so that we can keep track of those things going forward. I know sometimes you don't know whether you should submit something or not because you don't know if somebody else has, so we want to make that available to you. So that's sort of where we're at with feature requests and our plans going forward. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay, it's going really well so far. Migration status. This is more of a general note. It is July 13th today. We are planning on having everybody off of OpenText by December 31st. I think most people in here are already working on their sites in WordPress. Jane is going live tomorrow. But if you have not, you should really start working on it now, because our time is becoming more and more scarce. And so if you're going to need our help or any sort of assistance from us, you are going to want to start that process sooner rather than later, because we're envisioning our November and December to be pretty hectic, because not only are we going to be trying to get everybody off of OpenText to WordPress, there may be some people that aren't going to make the deadline, and then we've got to figure out how to publish them to a static site until their WordPress site is done and decommission the old. So our time is very much locked up, as I sort of mentioned with the feature request too. It all kind of ties together. So this is just a general halfway through the year reminder that it's coming, and the longer you wait, the less will be available for you. Not that we don't want to be.
I would say especially if you have necessary customizations for your site, like things that absolutely need to be in place, or an application. We really want you to be in touch as soon as possible if you haven't been already.
Yes.
I held off on doing some pages because I was kind of waiting for a feature request.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way to find out, like, should I just go ahead and try to make it work without that particular feature? Or?
If you have specific ones you would like an update on, shoot us an email. Okay. Because maybe it is in the works. But if it's, put it this way, if anything that's come in so far is not in the works, it'll probably not get done before the end of the year. And there are people that we're just telling sometimes as they come in, whose sites are going live in a couple weeks, and we're like, yes, we know that this is something we want to get to, but you should plan on going live without it.
And I would say also, if you are wondering about it, please come to an open lab or schedule specific time with one of us, because we might have a workaround that doesn't even require a customization.
So I'll reiterate that point. Some of the requests we get are more or less nicer ways of doing something that's maybe a little bit rougher to do as a workaround. So what we can do is show you, okay, well, you want this functionality. Here's how you can build it out manually. It'll take you a little bit more, and then eventually we can, maybe have an easier way to do it down the road. But we might be able to deliver what you need until the nicer thing comes along. So the open labs are a great way to do that. Yes, Joe.
So Ryan, just out of curiosity, do you have an estimate of how many of your open text, formerly open text sites have made the transition at this point in time?
I don't know.
It depends on what you mean.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are in the works or nearly completed, but they haven't officially launched yet. Have gone live? What would you say, Kathy, on like live?
Like as a percentage?
Like 10%, like
Probably.
40%?
Probably about
10%.
So one thing Jen and I are working on right now is going through all the projects that haven't even had a project created in WordPress yet. So they have an open text site, they don't have a WordPress site yet. And I think we have about 50 to 60 customers still to contact to know if they're going to be transitioning with us, and if so, what their status is.
But the other thing, Joe, is we have 6 sites going live this week, probably close to 10 next week. Something's a big time for people to get this stuff done. And I would say 75% of our sites are working in it right now, getting ready. So some of them we don't know.
Right. So out of 250 sites, let's say there's 40 or 50 left that we still have to contact. So that's what, 80% of them have at least a project at this point in WordPress, and 10% and growing have made a full transition at this point.
And I would say out of the ones that are still left, there's actually a good portion that we've contacted and they just haven't returned our messages. So it's just a little bit of prompting.
No, I was just working on ours. I'm hoping to go live with it in a month or 2.
Okay.
And I'm thinking if I can get it live within 2 months, that would give me plenty of time to deal with contingencies.
Right.
And I would say as well, if you are struggling with moving content over and need help, please talk to us, because we will try to work with you on getting the content moved. So if that's a struggle, like this time frame is not a good time frame and you need some assistance, send an email to the support mailing list so that we're aware and we can start to handle it now versus in December.
Right. So we've identified that. We know that not everyone's going to have the amount of time necessary to migrate their sites. So we've been targeting like some 10-page sites, and just because those take us an hour or 2 tops, and we can just do it for you and then let you review it. If you're a site that's larger than that and you still think you need help, let us know, because again, it's better for us to try to squeeze that in now in between our work cycles, as opposed to December when there will be no time to do it. So we can help as much as we can, especially if there's a lot of static content, faculty pages, information about your site, things like that. That's fairly easy to rebuild. If you do have the time, I would certainly encourage you to spend that time, because you're going to learn WordPress better, and you may be able to take the time to work on your site and make it better as well. But we also know that that's not the case for everybody. Yes.
Content so interrelated program areas that are represented on different sites. Like, is there a publishing skill? Like, I'm interested in, like, I just asked Casey, when are you guys planning on going live? Like OHR, business services, risk, like program areas where I know there's a lot of turnover, and wondering, like, is there any opportunity for public access to anticipated go live dates? And I speak to it more in the regard of, we onboard a lot of people in research safety, general occupational health and safety in the beginning of the year, both employees and students. And so if we're putting out links and or putting out information that may or may not be true, like is there any way to, or should I just be contacting each of them? Because often when I contact, they're like you might know, I'll get the answers straight.
We don't have the answers.
Yeah, I think that's a tough thing
so
for
it's
us
like
to
still work with the program areas to figure out when.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as sites that may be linked from other big sites on campus, make sure that you're taking control of that and letting the folks that you work with know that your links will be changing, and try to keep up on that.
Would there be a way to get like once a month a list of who went live?
Oh, that's
just because I got a bunch of hyperlinks that
after the fact.
When UHS went live, we
Right.
about like 5 or 6.
Yeah, and I just sent all of them, and then you guys found more, right?
I don't know. It's a question to that. We haven't been.
So here's the answer to that question.
Yeah.
We haven't been doing it, because we haven't had time to do it.
Yeah, right.
So if it's really important
Exactly.
to you all, we can step back from some of the other stuff we're doing. We can try and on a monthly basis update what sites are live. But it's not that horribly critical to the masses. It would be a better use of our time to continue to migrate. It's a give and take right now.
Right.
I mean,
We
the
are.
team is pretty small, so anytime we
Yeah.
start to do something else, we're taking it away from something we're doing.
Right.
So you know, if there's sites that you know that you're linking to, I would make contact with those people in particular and say, are you going live? Are you not? You know, just keep me updated. They can then take that into consideration when they're doing your redirects. You know, so that you don't have to update your links right away. If they know that you're linking to these pages, they can put the
Yeah,
redirects
very
in
high
place for
level
that.
pages, yeah.
Right.
Right. So one of the. So yeah, I was going to mention about redirects as well. That that's something we do rely on site owners to let us know. So hopefully they're doing a good job with telling us like, oh, I know EA. You all right there, Phil?
It's a really awkward sounding hiccup. I'm sorry.
I pinched him, sorry.
Sorry. So if you're doing a link to the home page and that URL stays the same, obviously that's not a problem.
Yeah.
So you're looking at your second level links, sort of, which would be like your top level navigation. We are recommending most people look at their top 10 or 15 links, whether they're the search results. If you do a search for, let's say, EHS, for example, and did Google WiscED search for EHS, what are your top results there? We can put in redirects for those. Look at your analytics. If you know certain pages are getting more hits than other ones, we can put in redirects for those. And then a generic 404, which we've shown, and we have KBDoc for, for anyone who has a link that is one of your deeper web pages. They'll get redirected to a 404 that you control and say, hey, that page is moved. Hopefully that does a good enough job for both users as well as you guys to catch most of those. The redirect, I'm finding Phil put in the redirector, I don't know, a couple months ago. I've used it now 4 or 5 times, and now I'm figuring out things we can do like wildcards. So if depending on what you're migrating from, if you have you're publishing to a subdirectory or something like that, we can make everything in that subdirectory go to a top level page. There's a lot we can do if you let us know what that is. Again, we recommend 10 to 15 or so of your top pages, and use the 404, custom 404 after that.
So in the custom 404, would we put in the redirect?
So the custom 404 we showed last time,
Yeah.
it's in the customizer part of your dashboard.
Right.
And what you do is you make a page in your page builder as normal, and I would call it 404 page or something like that. And in there you just put essentially a message to users who end up there, which are pages that no longer exist. Say this, your link, sorry, the link you're looking for isn't here anymore. We've recently migrated. Chances are it's still in the site somewhere, in a location where it would have been, where you would expect to find it. If you can't find it, email blah blah blah, that you know where to find it or something like that. As opposed to the red 404 error with no information that doesn't even look like it's part of your site. If you've seen that before, and we can go through this at a open lab if you want, or somebody meet anybody. All right, any more questions about sort of migration as a whole? Okay. All right, the last thing I'm going to mention are targeted trainings, which I don't think we've talked about here other than maybe conceptually. Jenna and Matt have been doing some targeted trainings that are geared at specific plugins or functionality within WordPress. I'm not sure if we have any on here right now. We do not.
No, the schedule's kind of.
But where you would come to find those would be the training page. So WiscWeb.edu/WiscWeb-training, or just training at the top. And our entry-level trainings are all called Training WordPress using the UW theme. Those you'll see probably more than any other in general, because we're still offering those every week or every 2 weeks to keep new users,
Once a week.
get new people up to speed in WordPress. But you will see, and if you had been here in June, you would have seen some other classes: gravity forms, WP data tables, events calendar, faculty list, and documents list. And these are 1 hour classes. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm still tinkering with the timing of the one-off classes like that, mainly because a lot of them they're pretty straightforward how you use them. You build it in one place, you apply it in another place. So I either go from like a 90-minute class to a 60-minute class. Basically, I might just start sticking with like an hour-long class, half an hour of training, and then half an hour of just open time for people to actually like apply it to their site specifically. I mean, the timing is hard because some people will get it right away. Some people have been using it already and are just coming to get like a little more insight into it. But I mean, that's basically what those classes are meant for. Is they're just meant more for specific things within the environment itself.
Right. So, and I think these. So as an example, out of the gravity forms is where we found the post feature that I showed right at the beginning. That was a question that just sort of Jim Vogel, I think, had, and you guys just looked at it while you were in class together and found it.
Yeah.
So not only is it sort of discovery for you, but it's discovery for us as well. So they're just very useful if you're trying to get more out of a feature, or you say, okay, I've got my base site set up. I want to use the events calendar and go away, to and just attend one and get the basics of how it works and go from there. Categories is good. I would say if you're not familiar with those, these classes will teach you how to use categories in those specific areas. So yeah, look for those. We don't make announcements about them, so you'll have to come back and check our site every week or two. Matt, usually, do you know when you're gonna post the next batch of them?
I don't know.
Okay.
Just because this month is weird for me because I'm taking vacation.
You're not allowed to take vacation.
I'm just kind of. And then also I'm helping Jenna and Kathy out with doing some of the content transfer. Some of the stuff.
So those are out there. They'll be coming up when Matt gets a chance to post them and get them scheduled. Typically, Matt or Jenna is the teacher, depending on who it is, what the class is.
Jenna does the gravity forms mainly because she's the one who's used it the most, but I'll probably start doing that more because of the fact that she's using it. I have more time to actually teach the classes then. She does. The other thing to talk about with this is expanding these offerings a little bit more, and not just doing like faculty staff pages and things like that, but also offering up things like page elements. What are all the different types of page elements that we have access to? And I've always in my mind formulated them as like think outside the box type classes where, hey, here's a bunch of page elements. What can you do with them? What else can you use on your page besides the text block to throw things onto your page? So I want to do some of those. I just don't know really how to present them to folks because I really don't know how to do it other than to say, hey, let's all sit down together for an hour and just kind of, shoot the breeze and talk about what you all might want to do. Because it's beneficial for lots of people to come and sit down through it, but I really don't have a set agenda.
And it depends on the project so much, what you're looking for. I would say the open labs are great for that. So if you are not sure how to set up a page, please come to an open lab because we have used this theme a lot by now, and we will have some tips for structuring your pages with different page elements.
I think one of the things I've heard is that in open text where we had more time and developer time to do custom work, people felt like their sites all felt different and they really like that. And they come to the UW theme and they go, well, my site's going to look like everybody else's. And I think that's a bit of a myth because of how many different page elements there are and how you can use them in different places. And each site, despite maybe some of the colors and things being the same, you can make them look very different in how they function and what information is displayed. So if you're looking for something like some uniqueness or something that makes your stand out a little bit more, the open labs are great and we can work with you to find that. If you're just finding, well, I'm just making a bunch of pages with a bunch of text and that's boring. Can I do something else? Come to an open lab. We can help you get that information displayed in a way that makes it feel more fun, makes it more easy for the user to find. and gives you maybe, like I said, a unique kind of look and feel to your site that a lot of people want, but they're not sure how to get. So,
well, I have a million meta thoughts, and the one piece is the value of those courses is exactly what you said, is that we're coming together, sharing what's working or what we suddenly discover, because there aren't content subject matter experts except for you guys just leading the group or leading all of campus on the front end, because we're forced into this. So it's like excuse me.
Slightly no.
As opposed to, yeah, it's like, can we turn the, but around, like, if we do like legitimate curriculum design that is like, either we're we can come at curriculum design in a way where it is an open architecture, where we're delivering some content, but then also room to share and learn from each other.
More collaborative efforts.
Exactly, and that's the history of this place, and even more so now if we're using one and there's no resources, like we have to rely on each other to build it forward.
Yeah,
and then and then maybe it is a broader audience, that if the group that shows up here, they're a little bit more of the first responder or first adopters, and the beta testers, whatever we're calling everyone these days, but we're moving it forward. Then if you're looking at page features, etc., then it's like reaching out, start of the semester, what else? Yeah, how do you differentiate your site from others now that we're all on the same theme? Like, there's your tagline one, if that's a
it's just more of a brainstorming type thing rather than a delivered training.
And I think,
and then facilitating or like asking the questions to facilitate that process.
Creating the open collaboration aspect of it is kind of a idea as well. But again, most of us are comfortable with each other, and the fact that a lot of our sessions are always you guys, which is great because I've gotten to know most of you very well. But I think the people that need the most help or need this type of collaborative effort are the ones who don't make the choice to come to these trainings or make the choice to come to these open lab sessions, and they instead are emailing Ryan, Jenna, and Kathy and myself directly, when they would benefit from this collaborative, open idea engagement.
And that may be the 50% of those who aren't responding to your request for migration. That is, this is a different way that, like, here's another way that we can support you, come to these classes. It may help you, like, it might help them get over the hump to start moving on it.
Yeah.
And feel like they have the support. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe, and not to like spam everybody with emails, but maybe I do need to start making more of a concerted effort to communicate these things out to folks and actually like try to push them all to come to these things a little bit more, instead of just using the site as my delivery method.
And I think right now, I don't know, like, there's more on everyone's plate in our office than anyone can handle at any given time. So it's just like, yeah, the prioritizing and that's all anyone I know is doing right now.
And I've
also, so how do we?
I've also thought about doing something like this. We're just doing a Google Hangout and invite everyone to a Google Hangout, and basically I'll just sit there for an hour and just go, all right, folks, today we're going to talk about blah, and then you guys can either join or not join and look at it after the fact and just kind of do some things. Again, this is more outside of the box of just-in-time type training, rather than just the scheduled effort.
Yeah.
But mainly it's more to meet these needs of, how do I use the faculty staff list when I have, like, School of Nursing uses a very nice faculty staff list with the fact that they have like 5 pages of faculty lists. And then they have all of them differentiated using types, but then they use a couple of them where they individually add people because these are the important things like that. So like, I want to show that kind of stuff to people because everybody's asking, like,
Showcase.
I was meeting with Strider Lab a little bit ago, and they were like, well, the people list is not in the right order. Well, it's easy to show you how in the order you want it to be in, but people don't always take that effort to do so. So, again, it's more of a, I don't want to leave people hanging because a lot of folks come in with a lot of questions, but sometimes we don't know what those questions are because of the fact that, again, it's always you guys. And I love you guys, but you guys are saturated with me. Like, you guys have seen enough of me when it comes to training in open labs.
I've seen it.
But again, I need to reach more people. And it's just trying to offer more so that I can reach more people and really help them finish up and get through the backlog of sites that we have, because they just don't, either A, they don't have the time, or B, they don't make the effort to come get trained or come.
Or C, honestly, we have sites that are years old that people are tired.
Oh, yeah,
They're
yeah.
anymore, they don't even
Don't know,
know.
don't care.
Right.
Totally.
Did you have a comment?
I was just gonna comment, I was one of the early adopters of switching over, first of all, because OpenText was the most ridiculous tool I've ever used. But part of it was just saying, jump in the pool and I'll learn how to swim later. And I just focused for about a week on getting my content switched. And then I started saying, how do I want this to look? And I started trying all the different things, and I got help from Jenna and other people to say, okay, now I like this. And I mean, I've been improving it for months, you know, ever since then. Every time I'm in it, I go, oh, now try this, you got a new feature, whatever. So part of your message maybe to the people that haven't jumped yet is don't wait until every feature that you want is there and, you know, the room is perfectly set for your wedding. This is, you know, jump in, see what happens.
Well,
And then get help and maybe work on the idea like you just described, showcasing some of the successful things that people have done to show the diversity of looks and everything. I think the one that I worked in, mine's quite small, but it's interesting and
Yeah, very engaging.
yeah. And
Use a lot of
it's
different.
Campus Supervisors Network. I'm in it all the time playing, so
I think along those lines, one of the things that we'd really like to do come next year is start a user group. And do user group meetings and have users showcase their sites. This is what I've done.
go to the
This is what I'm
events page.
particularly proud of.
And do you know that there was a WordPress user group? Does it still exist?
It
But
does.
it's not the same type of thing.
It's
And
very,
more developer
I would say it's very
oriented.
developer driven.
Okay.
And independent.
We could make like a UW theme
Okay.
user group.
Exactly, something along the lines where it's not just WiscWeb users per se, it's
Okay.
every theme across campus. But have people, make it kind of a show and tell sort of thing, this is what I've done, I'm really proud of it, what do you think? Or,
This is how I solved this problem.
exactly.
And I was imagining, like, does Libby have these town hall meeting things on a regular basis?
Mhm.
And is there opportunity to collaborate in that space to showcase for a significant number of people as like a first step? I know, yeah, I don't know,
I believe they're quarterly.
quarterly, okay,
And I believe they frequently talk about sort of what's coming up next and things
Right.
like that. But there's, I would say
And if
there's
it's 5
absolutely
minutes at that
space.
time.
I would say there's space, whether it's that particular meeting or again, a group or a separate meeting, a monthly users group to have over lunch, similar to this, where it's just talking about using the theme and what you've done. You could have a rotating list of people present their sites. Here's our site, here's what we did, here were our needs, here's how we accomplished that. Because yeah, we frequently come across, like, I sometimes feel very strange calling myself an expert because I don't know if I am or like, I don't know what that means. What was that? Yeah, that's fine. Matt's an expert, so next time Matt will be the. But yeah, there are a lot of like, we found out about the Gravity Forms form to post functionality. It seems, sometimes I feel like, well, why didn't we know about that? But it's time. It's you didn't go into that. You didn't go into that menu.
We don't think about it.
Nobody asked, right? Nobody asked about it. Well, let's see if that exists. So there's within our offering, plugins and UW theme, there are probably a billion or more iterations of things you could do in a specific page because of all the different elements, and if you think, or more. So I just didn't happen to think that I had to go into a sub menu to do this certain thing. But maybe some of you know more about specific things than we do. So we frequently come across as the experts in these things as we're showing up what it is we're finding and think you should know about. But chances are there's thousands of more things you guys know that you could either present at one of these meetings or a user group type meeting. So.
Right on this page, go to the links to resources. This is my favorite page right
Mine too.
here.
I don't know.
It's a great image.
So as long as we're here, I just thought I'd show this off.
And where did you get your pictures?
Those are all from UW-Madison, and some of them are my own photos.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Well, those two were all UW-Madison site ones. I did cheat a little, Jenna knew this, your background is not actually white on your website. So like the top of that photo, I have Photoshop skills, so I went into the top of that photo and gradiated it to the gray color of the background, so that's why that photo looks like it just goes into forever.
Looks great.
So.
And when you started that,
It's really nice.
right in class, I was like, and you should
What
be
are you
doing
doing?
like a
Right.
lead, you should have like a photo specific class,
That would be great.
right? That
So.
might draw
again,
different.
it goes on like
population,
level
right?
2 or level 3 things. First,
Yeah.
get the
Yeah,
crap
right.
on the page,
Totally.
then go, now what?
But,
That's,
but you're gonna draw people if you can make the time to co-facilitate a class like that and just show people what you're doing.
And see,
And
like,
that brings some expertise to your
See,
office
to
too.
that extent, like I've talked about that before about, I've talked with others about that before, about the fact that I'm not a Photoshop expert. I know enough to get myself into trouble with things like that. I would love to have you
Yeah.
come over, but then it gets into time, and things
Right.
like that. Like, how do we justify the
I know.
time, things like that. Like, I would love to turn I'd love to turn Jim Vogel loose on all of you.
Whoa.
I was gonna ask you.
we're the core group here.
Right, but
Ask
see, that's
us
the thing.
first.
Yeah, but like, that's the thing is like, it all comes down to time, effort, and quite honestly, funding.
Well-
Matt, I was gonna ask you to just let us know when he's signed up for a class.
That's
So
good.
we can show up.
It is very good,
Because
yeah.
I was
We're
there
open
that
lab.
year
We're
for.
gonna
When
stalk
we-
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today, we're gonna play with photos
Yeah.
there as well as other.
It's
Yeah.
true, again, like, I guess just to bring this back around to what I initially had said is, there is this general thought that I constantly have of what more can I do for all of you, because of the fact that there are those types of things where no one thinks about the fact that this is a photo that's a solid image, except you can take it into Photoshop and you can gradiate it a little bit to make it look more appealing as the background of a content layout. So.
When you were talking about that Google Hangouts potentially doing, I mean, I think it would be helpful if we could submit. I'd really
I
love
could
to
do
be
a
able to
call for-
brainstorm.
I could do a call for ideas, email
Yeah.
out to folks, I can do that kind of stuff.
All right, so I think what I'm hearing is that there's definitely a pretty heavy interest in having some more sort of user focused groups, whether it end up being a hangout or an in-class or even an email list. So I think we'll add that as an agenda item to our group, not necessarily to control, but to sort of figure out what the best medium is for it, and then maybe we unleash it. We just sort of unleash it to you guys and see where it goes.
I guess the other thing that I would say is, a lot of you guys work in areas where other folks are also making these migrations as well. It'd be nice if you could use your influence on them to, sort of initiate some of those conversations of what types of trainings do you need, what types of time
I was
do you
wondering
need.
if we had a basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I could come over and just sit in one of those offices and we could have the faculty, faculty,
Yeah.
academic and university staff folks.
Well, and
All
then
in one.
Chancellor Provost.
Yeah. So, like the diversity class, a different piece entirely. Diversity.
I might want to come and just see like some best practices.
And Matt, with basic like Canvas rollout, I've gone to a couple different spots where in the summer,
Yeah, we're gonna do
and
some of that
and I
stuff
was
as well.
incredibly surprised at the faculty turnout when it was geographically practical for them.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's the other problem is that a lot of the stuff that we do, it does require a hands-on component to an extent. And I never want to assume that bring your own device is going to be easy for everyone, so it's kind of hard to.
Well, but I mean, maybe that's where the hangout comes in. Or
But
whatever.
yeah, but maybe
So
that's.
Yeah.
one other thing I want to mention is that the newsletter, which I've been sending out, I think monthly. I might have missed June. I can't
Yeah.
remember. But
Could be a little weird.
but that came out of this group, and I think that's been pretty well received. I've actually gotten some people reply to a few of them saying, "Hey, thanks for sending us out. This is really great." So, and this is, I think, another next iteration of well, what's going on with the service, and maybe the next iterations. How do we all communicate better with ourselves? So that's, I think, a good idea. So we'll talk about this sort of internally on our team and let you guys know what we come up with. Again, we are resource strapped at the moment, but if there's sort of this ability for you guys to take some of the work from us and present a Photoshop or here's I'm going to talk for a half hour about my site. That's easy for us to do. We can just book a room or create a hangout or whatever, and let you guys go to town on it. So I do know if we do anything UW theme related, we'll want to have Libby probably just, if we make a group or whatever, don't want to cross the streams. So yeah, we will get back to you guys on these great ideas. So thank you for bringing them up, because these are the sorts of things that I think help build the service without it all coming from us, because we're not that smart.
Well, Matt is.
Well, that's
Right, it isn't exactly about the service, it's actually about building the community.
Right.
And definitely, as we've all kind of acknowledged here as well, that this isn't, we aren't the only people using WordPress on campus. There's we aren't the only people using the UW theme. People using gravity forms, etc. Like there's a bunch of other folks out there, and right now I think, even that you had a specific class on gravity forms, there's nothing stopping someone who's also using gravity forms but not the UW theme to come and pick something up. But that probably hadn't been communicated out very strongly. So we can do some more of that, and then maybe even just see what the UW WordPress group and with Libby, see if she's got some ideas about what's another good way to engage, because for quarterly meetings that really are, obviously there's some discussion component, but it's a lot of like, here's what we're doing.
And I think those are great meetings for what they are, but then how can we?
Yeah, and we're talking about it sounds like a bunch of the useful stuff is that not only how did I solve this problem, how might you implement, and then the time to actually work on it, right? And that's the whole, that's what speeds everybody to get their sign out the door. You get a chance to couple that, I learned something, plus I get to do it, and then maybe it's done by the time I leave. That helps everybody.
All right. Well, we are at 12:59. We will stick around if you guys do have any questions that you do have that we haven't answered yet. But otherwise, thanks everybody for attending. I do believe we are planning on probably doing brown bags the rest of the year. I don't plan on taking any off because I think there's going to be a ton of information. So wrap it up. This is the Academy Awards. They're playing the music. Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
Am I good to stop?
Yeah.